What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the Mac Sports Connection podcast, where Alex hosts all things Mac, all things football, all things sports, right here, Mac Sports Connection, baby. The Mid-American Conference best, bringing it only the great Mac to everyone.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mac Sports Connection podcast. I'm your host, Alex the Captain, part of the Varsity Network. Thank you so much for joining me this week. We are literally 8 weeks away from the college football season, and I gotta tell you, I'm super excited for what this season's going to bring. The excitement that's in the air for the Mid-American Conference this year is incredible. I think that there's a lot of great possibilities of teams having a chance to run the table. And of course, I think there's the possibility that this conference beats up on itself and does something similar to what 90% of the SEC does. And they come out and one team is, well, slightly unscathed. Not entirely, of course, but maybe just slightly. Anyway, so back to the show. We are doing our preview-ish episodes. Each week I'm bringing you an episode of a team from the conference, and we are discussing kind of their talent composition, the schedule, win totals, things like that. This is just a simple preview-ish, kind of get you up to speed on what you can kind of look forward to, what you can kind of expect out of the team here in the 2024 football season. Looking back to last season, Northern Illinois finished 7-6 with a very peculiar win over Arkansas State in the Camellia Bowl, a 21-19 victory for the Huskies. They finished 5-3 in conference play a year ago. They started to really get things figured out, and I think now what we're seeing, and Coach Hammock talked about this a couple years ago, the MAC championship team of 2021 had something like 70 freshmen or something, and I could have that number wrong, and I could be wrong on what class that actually was, but they had at least 75, if not more, underclassmen, and now we're finally starting to see those guys graduate. They just lost a bunch of guys to graduation, but they also have a bunch of guys who have a bunch of experience who were some of those underclassmen to those now graduated seniors. The biggest question marks for me when I kind of look at this Northern Illinois team is this is a team who they're not losing a lot defensively. In fact, based off of just kind of looking at general roster numbers, they only have to replace 4 starters on the defensive side of the ball. And it looks like that's going to be mostly defensive tackles, defensive ends, 1 linebacker, and 1 cornerback. Even then, Jacob Finley, he's slotted in currently what it looks like as number 2 on the depth chart. So, I mean, there's a chance that he could be starting this year. He's a returning player who got plenty of opportunities a year ago. And really, he was part of a defense that, in total defense, they finished 3rd in the conference. They only gave up 318.5 yards a game, passing 165 a game, rushing 153, almost 154, and then points per game. This is where it got a little interesting. They finished 4th in the conference at 21.2 points a game. So they played really good defense. And you've got Rasheem Thomas coming back, Devontae O'Malley, you've got Jaden Dolphin, Jashawn Profit, you've got Javon Bird, Jordan Hansen. I mean, this is a defense that's going to be incredibly talented this year. And I'm really looking forward to what they do. Now, they were hammered, and I mean hammered, by the transfer portal. You've got a bunch of players transferring out here this past offseason, and the transfer portal, again, you guys have heard my thoughts on it. The Huskies lost 11 players to the transfer portal this offseason. Conversely, they are bringing in 7, and there's at least one. I'm looking at the list now, and again, this could have changed. These lists definitely aren't consistent by any means, but C.J. Brown, the cornerback, he transferred from Northern Illinois to Bowling Green, so that's an in-conference and now in-pod transfer, which I think is really interesting. But I'm looking at a lot of these guys who transferred out, or at least a few of them here went to Power 5 schools. You've got Pete Negra. He went to Louisville, offensive lineman. George Gums Jr., he went to Florida. So you've got guys, and that was an edge player. You've got guys who are going to Power 5 schools. But conversely, again, talking about guys transferring and making moves that are best for them, they're bringing in FCS guys who had pretty decent careers at the FCS level. For example, Mark Preto, he is transferring in from Fordham to Northern Illinois. He was second on the team in tackles a year ago, moving into the starting lineup as a sophomore. This was a guy who he also appeared in every game that Fordham had the year before. He was relatively impactful, and I think this is a guy who could make an immediate impact here at Northern Illinois as well. I think there's plenty of opportunity for him to really have a pretty healthy impact right off the rip. And that's just one example of the many guys transferring in who have made impacts at their other stops. Another guy coming in, Jake Applegate. I pray I said that right. Some of these last names are pretty interesting. But Jake Applegate, transferring in from Nebraska, who Northern Illinois played last year. Transferring in from Nebraska, looks like he got some playing time. He did not play his freshman year back in 2022, but it looks like he did play in 6 games this past season. And he's a tight end, big guy, 235 pounds, 6'4". Not really any stats that I'm seeing here. Looks like he had, 7 games that he played in, but he made no statistical impact, which that's fine. It seems like there was an opportunity for him to move on to another program where he could have an impact and, play at a higher level or play at a high level. And, I'm thinking that that's the case here. Of course, he's going to be battling Grayson Barnes, the senior, for that starting job at tight end, but it's Coach Thomas Hammock. I wouldn't be surprised to see them roll out multiple tight end schemes to get both of these guys opportunities. And again, I think that's just one of yet another example of guys who you look to better yourselves. You've got Kawan Davis coming in from Washington State, a couple guys coming from Arkansas Pine Bluff and Southeast Missouri State. They're just, again, you're losing guys, you're bringing guys in. It's all about finding that balance. Northern Illinois lost a few more than they brought in, but that remains to be seen how much of an impact that really has on this upcoming season. But really, enough on the transfer portal. Let's just kind of dive into what this team has returning. Obviously, we know guys like Rocky Lombardi are graduating, guys who really had a major impact in their career at Northern Illinois. Rocky obviously transferring in from Michigan State after the 2020 COVID season. And he came in, again, had an immediate impact and won a MAC championship his first year as the starter at Northern Illinois. The biggest standout player to me, and I know this sounds very, very, anybody can look that up. It's got to be Ontario Brown, at least offensively. He was a first-team MAC running back a year ago. He's got his final year at Northern Illinois. almost 1,300 rushing yards a year ago, 10 touchdowns. He has over 2,500 rushing yards for his Northern Illinois career. And, I mean, this is just a guy who really everybody knows. You know what kind of a player he is. They're big, they're strong, they're fast at the running back position. Northern Illinois has always had great running backs. Everybody knows them. Everybody understands who they are. I really think that this is going to be his best season ever. He, of course, has a little bit of help back there. Gavin Williams is going to be kind of spelling him, given really any opportunity he can. Gavin Williams had almost 500 yards a year ago, and I think that he is going to be a critical component to this offense as well, only because now you are replacing your starting quarterback, the aforementioned Rocky Lombardi. You're also returning Trayvon Rudolph, the wide receiver for Northern Illinois. This is a huge retainer for the Huskies, and it's going to really help out what they're doing offensively in terms of having really a starter available for, I imagine, Ethan Hampton. I know that you've got Jalen Macon, who's kind of chomping at the bit there to take over that starting job. But I think right now it's probably Ethan Hampton, just until it's not. He saw time and has made starts and has played in games over the past 2 years. And I think that this is really his job to lose. And again, Trayvon Rudolph, he was a third-team All-MAC wide receiver. Grayson Barnes, the tight end I mentioned earlier, he's going to be back. He caught 5 touchdowns a year ago. It's going to come down to how strong this offensive line is. I think you've got Evan Malcor, you've got J.J. Lipp, you've got John Champ. Those guys, all critical. But you're getting in a transfer, Evan Buss. You, of course, get Logan Zernich. And I apologize if I butchered that there, Logan. But you get Logan back who, he's making a switch over to center. But he's been on the offensive line his whole career. He does have essentially 34 starts, I think, as an offensive lineman. So he's just making a switch. And then, offensively, you're going to need guys like, if I had to guess, Dane Partridge to step up. You're going to need Keshawn Pipkin to step up. Kenji Lewis, the junior. These are all sophomores, juniors who are going to need to step up. This is a young wide receiving core aside from Trayvon Rudolph. He's the lone senior, and Kenji Lewis is the lone junior. Everybody else is a sophomore or under for the wide receivers. So you're going to need these guys to really step up and become big playmakers and big playmakers quickly. Again, on the defensive side, you've got 2 of the top 4 defensive linemen returning. Rasheem Thomas, Devontae O'Malley, both of those guys coming back. But then what Northern Illinois has always done, and you'll see this a lot, especially when you go and look up statistics from over the years. Yes, they were headlined by a great player in James Esther, who is now in the NFL, so good luck to, Mr. Esther, of course. But when you look at their statistics as a team, you had double-digit guys have 30 or more tackles. Double-digit guys have 20-plus solo tackles. Coach Hammock has always done a phenomenal job of rotating guys in, getting guys opportunities to play. So this isn't a matter of, are they going to be okay replacing people, whatever it may be. They rotate a good 6-7 guys every single game just to get them that experience, just to get them opportunities to contribute, to spell other guys, whatever it may be. I think it works. Northern Illinois was overall the third best defense in the MAC last year. And I really think that what Coach Hammock has done with them defensively, it's working. I think when it comes to guys that you need to look at, Javon Bird, he's going to have a big year this year in that backfield as one of the cornerbacks for this team. I think that this is an opportunity for him to step up and really be a leader. This is a breakout season for him. And that defensive backfield, really the entire defense, is senior laden. I'm looking at it right now. Based off of what I'm looking at, projected starters, you're looking at 9 out of 12 are going to be seniors. So this is their final year of eligibility. I think depending on how they roll with things, you're looking at Desmond Taylor, Roy Williams, Pierce Opong, kind of filling in that defensive tackle and defensive end spot. Maybe Cade Haberman. That feels like that's going to be a toss-up between those four guys there. But I do think when I look at it, you're looking at 9 or 10 of 12 starters on the defensive side of the ball are going to be seniors. This is a very, very heavy senior class defensively. A little bit on the offensive side, but mostly defensively. And I think that this is going to be a big year for a very talented and very experienced defensive unit. The question, of course, is going to be, can the offense keep up? And I think they can. I think the offense is good enough that they have the talent and the ability to play at a higher level. Ethan Hampton, I think, will do a fine job. Rocky Lombardi did an excellent job over his time at Northern Illinois. But I think Ethan Hampton has a different skill set. And I think this is going to be a big opportunity for them. Looking at this schedule, they open up the season at home against Western Illinois. They travel to Notre Dame week 2. Home against Buffalo week 3, so getting a MAC game out of the way early. Then back to a non-conference slate, a trip to NC State, and then home against UMass before really starting to get into conference play. You get both of your pod games out of the way pretty early, October 12th at Bowling Green, and then 19th, Toledo comes to Northern Illinois. And then 3 of your last 5, you're on the road. You're at Ball State, at Western Michigan, home against Akron, on the road at Miami, Ohio, before coming home November 30th against Central Michigan. Just going to go ahead and kind of look at this a little bit. Western Illinois feels like a win, and I hesitate to say feels like a win because we thought Southern Illinois a year ago was going to be a win. They lost 14-11 at home after beating Boston College on the road in overtime, 27-24. Northern Illinois was just such an up and down team a year ago. So you lost at home to Southern Illinois. You go and you lose to Nebraska a year ago. You lose back-to-back games. One at home against Tulsa, 22-14. I was there for that game. That was a heartbreaking loss. And then at Toledo, 33-35. Then you blow out Akron. You beat Ohio. You beat Eastern Michigan. You lose at Central Michigan. You lose by 3 at Ball State. You blank Western Michigan. And then you beat Kent State on the road. I was at that one as well. That was a great game. Northern Illinois battled all the way back to pull out that victory. And then you win your bowl game. I think it's different this year. Like I talked about, defensively, a lot more talent returning. A lot of opportunities for these guys to really step up and get a road and home kind of senior send out. Right? 7-6 last year. They were 5-3 in conference play. So they're going the right direction. So let's just look at the schedule again. Western Illinois, I'm going to call that a win. I'm saying you're getting this win right off the rip. At Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame is going to be a little bit too strong for this team. I do think that they play them and they play them a little bit tough. but I do think Notre Dame travel to South Bend week 2. I'm going to go ahead and chalk that one up as a Notre Dame victory. Sorry, Huskies. The Fighting Irish come out and they duke it out for 4 quarters. They pull away with the victory in the second half. Huskies fall to 1-1. Home against Buffalo. I don't know what to think about Buffalo this year yet. I keep looking at my previews. I keep looking at everything. Buffalo is going to be very interesting. You've got Pete Lembo coming back to the MAC after spending time at South Carolina as the special teams coordinator. He was in the MAC previously as the head coach of Ball State. I don't think he has his troops ready to go for conference play quite yet. So I'm going to go ahead and give Hammock and his crew the home victory. Buffalo moves to 2-1. This next game is where it gets interesting. 2 of the last 3 seasons, Northern Illinois has knocked off an ACC school. 2021, they knocked off Georgia Tech on the road 22-21. Last year, they beat Boston College at Boston College 27-24. My biggest hot take for the Northern Illinois football season, a win for the 3rd time in 4 years over an ACC squad. Northern Illinois gets it done on the road at NC State. And now I have a reason for this. NC State kind of, when you look at it, they have a really, really weird schedule. They welcome Tennessee to Charlotte, North Carolina at Bank of America Stadium. And then the following week, they're at home against Louisiana Tech. Group of 5 school. I get it. We're hard to get up against. It is a home game, but we're hard to get up against. Then you go to Clemson. And then in week 4, you've got Northern Illinois there at Carter Finley Stadium. And it's one of those things. The last time these two teams played, it was a 41-14 victory for the Wolfpack over the Huskies back in 1997. I don't know that NC State will be settled in at home enough. You're going to be playing 3 different games at 3 different sites in 3 different weeks. One of them's a home game. One of them is a quasi-home game at Charlotte, North Carolina. So your fans are going to be there, but it's not your home stadium. And then you have to start preparing for Wake Forest the week after Northern Illinois. So you're coming off of a battle with Clemson, at Clemson. Then you're coming home for Northern Illinois, who, very easy to look over. And then you're getting ready for another conference game against Wake Forest. My hot take of the 2024 football season, Northern Illinois beats NC State at Carter Finley Stadium. That is my hot take. Northern Illinois moves to 3-1 before playing UMass on October 5th. You get UMass at home on October 5th. I think this is where they lay an egg. It's going to look similar to the Southern Illinois one a year ago. They beat Boston College at Boston College in overtime. You're going to come home. You're going to lose to UMass. UMass is going to be better this year. I know they've been slowly improving, slowly getting better, and soon they're going to be a MAC foe. I think you lose to UMass, so you go 3-2 to start the season. Then you travel to Bowling Green. I think it's a loss at Bowling Green. Bowling Green defensively is going to be one of the toughest units in the conference. Offensively, they're going to be pretty solid as well. I think Bowling Green's going to be one of the better overall units in the league. A loss at Bowling Green, and then your rival Toledo. I think this one goes to Toledo. So I think Northern Illinois is now sitting at 3-3 at this point. I think this one goes to Toledo, but there have been some absolute battles between these two programs. So you're going to fall to Toledo, but then you're going to travel to Ball State, and you're going to beat Ball State at Ball State. You're going to beat Western Michigan on the road You beat Akron at home. You're going to lose to Miami on the road. And then you're going to, I'm just going to say, you're going to beat Central Michigan at home for senior day. So 7-5 is my overall projection for the Huskies here in 2024 with a Power 5 win over NC State. Now, important things to kind of look at. Coach Thomas Hammock, of course, 24-33 over 5 years. Very, very up and down. I think last year was a move in the right direction, getting this team going forward, moving forward. And I really think that this is going to be a phenomenal year for the Huskies. 7-5 with a win over a Power 5 program. Yes, you're not back in the MAC championship game. That sucks. I get it. But a 5-3 season against really 3 teams who I think are contenders in the MAC this year: Toledo, Bowling Green, Miami. I don't think you can sneeze at that. You know, for a decade and a half, maybe a little less than that, but about a decade, Northern Illinois was dominating the MAC, especially in the 2010s. And people were okay with seasons that resulted in a loss to Northern Illinois because it meant that they were competing against, and they were only losing against the team who won the MAC. So I think it's kind of the same situation here. You're competing against contenders of the MAC. I think you do go 5-3 in conference play. I think 7-5 overall. You head to a bowl game, maybe the Camellia Bowl again, maybe the Cure Bowl again, to maybe exact revenge on the officials from the Coastal Carolina game a couple years back. But 7-5, I think, is where it's at. Looking at it, Vegas win totals for Northern Illinois, they have it at 6.5. That's the line right now. So I think if you're a betting person, I'm hitting that over on the 6.5. Just feels like it's the right amount of wins, hitting that 7 mark for Northern Illinois. So to my gamblers and my degenerates out there, hammer that over. Hammer that hard. They will hit over 6.5 wins in the 2024 football season. Guys, that is going to do it for me this week. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Northern Illinois preview-ish. I will be bringing you more preview-ishes. Is that a real word? Is that a real phrase? Well, it's a phrase now. I'm going to be bringing more preview-ishes in the coming weeks here as we gear up for the fall football season, as we turn to media days, as we turn to season previews, predictions. If you need MAC previews, look no further than here. I'm going to have one a week at least through the end of the month, possibly 2, depending on what goes down. But I'm going to have at least one a week for you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please, please, please share the show out. Follow all the social media accounts. Every social media account you have, I'm on. You've got LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn at the Mac Sports Connection Podcast. You're on Facebook. Got you on Facebook too at the Mac Sports Connection Podcast. Twitter, well, now X, thanks to Elon, at the MSC Podcast. In fact, that's where most of you know me from. You can follow me over there as well. On Instagram at the MSC Podcast. YouTube at MSC Podcast. Literally anywhere social media exists, I am there. I am not, however, on Tumblr or MySpace. Might have to look into that though. We'll take a look and see. Oh, TikTok. I'm on TikTok as well. So if you need somebody to talk to you on TikTok and some videos, I'm posting the Maction moments, things like that up there. Please go ahead and check that out. And you can find me over there at the MSC Podcast. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in. I really appreciate the love and support you guys have shown. We broke the 3,000 follower barrier on Twitter X. I am eternally thankful for you guys being the support system you are. Next stop is 300,000, 300 million. We'll see how far we can push this thing. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.